How is a nation actually born? I mean, it's not just about drawing lines on a map, right? It's forged in these critical moments. Moments of strategy, of discipline, and some really profound moral tests. Today, we're going to look at the very first year of the state of Medina, a time that really set the stage for everything that came after. Okay, let's get into it.
So, what's the first thing you do when you're building a new community from the ground up? Well, you have to understand yourself. Before you can even think about projecting strength outwards, you have to know what strength you actually have. And for the brand new community in Medina, it all started with one very practical step. In that very first year, a census was ordered. But this wasn't about counting everyone. The specific order was to count up every man who was able to fight. And the number that came back? 1,500. For the very first time, they had a real number, a tangible measure of their own ability to defend themselves.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, because think about the psychological shift here. Before this census, the community was living with this constant anxiety, always afraid of a surprise attack. But just knowing that they had 1,500 defenders ready to go, well, it instantly turned that fear into confidence. It was basically the green light to stop just defending and to start conducting their own expedition.
But we all know that true leadership, true statecraft, it isn't just about how many people you have, it's about smart diplomacy. So, with this new confidence, the very next step was to start projecting influence and securing their place in the region.
And this is where things get really clever. By making an alliance with the Banu Damra tribe, who just happened to be located right along the key trade routes of their enemy, the Quraish, they hit multiple birds with one stone. They got a neutral ally, they choked off their enemy's supply lines, and they gained a ton of regional influence, all without a single arrow being fired. Just brilliant.
This newfound confidence and this strategic thinking, well, it was about to be put to the ultimate test in this remarkable story of absolute discipline and trust. It all centered on a mission that would push obedience to its absolute limit. Just try to imagine this for a second. Your commander, Abdullah ibn Jahsh, hands you a sealed letter and tells you to march your men into what could be enemy territory with only these instructions. That was the mission. It required this incredible level of trust and a kind of discipline that is honestly hard to even wrap your head around. To just obey, without even knowing where you're going or what you're supposed to do.
So why all the secrecy? Well, it was absolutely critical. At this early stage, Medina still had sympathizers and spies who could have easily leaked word to the Quraysh back in Mecca. The only way to guarantee the mission wasn't compromised was to keep the objective a secret, even from the men carrying it out, until the very last second.
But this mission, the one shrouded in so much secrecy, it took an unexpected turn. It ended up creating a huge, high-stakes moral dilemma that would force this young community to really define what it stood for.
Okay, so after 2 days, the letter is opened and the target is revealed, a Quraysh caravan. They engage, but they make a massive mistake. The attack happened during Rajab, one of the 4 months that by ancient Arab tradition was considered sacred, a time when fighting was absolutely forbidden. This one procedural error created a huge political and moral crisis. The Quraysh jumped all over this. They immediately launched this huge propaganda campaign to spin the story. They painted the Muslims as these dishonorable people who would shed blood, taking wealth, and capturing prisoners during a holy month. It was a really smart, strategic move to try and isolate Medina and turn everyone against them. Now, in this moment of crisis, the Prophet's leadership was everything. Instead of getting angry about the mistake, he just paused. He waited for guidance. And then this divine revelation came, and it provided this crucial perspective. It confirms, yes, fighting in a sacred month is a great sin. But, and this is a huge but, what the Quraysh were doing, their systemic oppression, preventing people from worshiping, kicking them out of their homes, that was a far greater evil. This is the concept of fitna. It's not just persecution. It's this state of chaos and oppression that literally blocks people from God. And the verse sets a clear moral hierarchy. Fitna is worse than killing. And in the middle of all this chaos, we see this incredible moment of leadership. 2 of the Muslim soldiers went missing. When the Quraysh offered to pay a ransom for their captured family members, the Prophet refused. He wouldn't even discuss it until his own men were found and brought back safely. It's just a timeless lesson, isn't it? A commander's first responsibility is to their own people.
So that makes you wonder, right? Where did this incredible discipline, this resilience, this ability to reflect on a mistake, where did it all come from? Well, the answer is in this unique combination of spiritual routine and physical training that was really the foundation of their whole society. The day for them started before dawn with the Fajr prayer. And this wasn't just a ritual. They saw it as the first victory of the day. As this teaching explains, Waking up for that prayer was like spiritually untying these knots of lethargy and starting the day with focus, with energy, and with purpose.
So you see, it's these two things working together. The day was anchored by this spiritual routine, this constant connection to something bigger than themselves. And that spiritual discipline was perfectly matched by constant, practical, physical training.
Skills like archery, horsemanship, swordsmanship, these weren't just weekend hobbies. They were actively encouraged, they were part of daily life. This training was considered part of their service, making sure they were always ready to defend their community and their principles.
All right, so as we start to pull all this together, let's just boil it down to the core principles that were really forged in these intense early moments.
Three really powerful ideas stand out from this whole period. First, justice. This idea that there's a moral hierarchy, and fighting against systemic oppression is the higher priority, even when mistakes are made along the way. Second, discipline. A resilience that's built from a daily commitment to both spiritual grounding and physical readiness. And finally, mercy. A real compassion in leadership, shown by not reacting to a mistake with anger and by always putting the safety of your people first. And that really leaves us with this final thought, doesn't it? It's easy to stick to your principles when everything's going great. But it's in those moments of error, of crisis, of pressure from the outside, that's when a community really figures out what it's made of. It's in how you respond to a mistake that the deepest lessons are learned and a nation's true character is forged.